Hi folks, Diedrich Allen with Mason Web TV powered by HCC. We're in Callanan Park in Shelton, but we're going to talk about senior driving and a driver's safety class. It's happening in Belfair on July 13th, Saturday, at the Hub in Belfair. With me is Gerry Apple, and Gerry, you're the instructor. We've had this conversation 9 months ago, maybe a year. We talked about your classes. Remind everybody about Gerry.
A little bit about my traffic safety.
Yeah.
Well, I've been teaching traffic safety for 53 years. Started in 1970. I guess now it's 54 years.
Okay.
I got to change that. But I started in 1970 at Holcomb High School and got my training through Western Washington University. My focus was teaching in the public schools. And I did that up until about 2021. And then I started working with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission, and they were promoting a program for senior driving. So now my emphasis is not on working with youth, but is working with people over 55 years old, and so that they can get an insurance break. I've been president of our state association, was president and still on the board of directors for our National Traffic Safety Association. I've worked with NHTSA, and I also work a little bit with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission as far as lobbying for bills that deal with traffic safety, whether it be for senior citizens or for people under 18, and now for people 18 to 25.
Okay.
And so that's my background. I've probably taught over 20,000 people how to drive or worked with them in the classroom. And part of that, those numbers are high because a lot of the time they're for 3 or 4 years and still working with Zoom classes where I might have 5 classes on at one time.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to focus on the senior driving portion of it. You talked about basically a discount on your insurance. Personally, I've seen my rates, and we're going monthly here, about $80, go up by $80 a month every 6 months. So that's $500. That's a substantial increase. And your class, you get a certificate after you finish the class, and what does that do for folks?
Well, what it does is once they've completed that class, that one-day program, it's about a 6 to 7 hour program. Once they've completed it, they give their certificate to their insurance company. And I always encourage them to make a copy so that they know when they took it last. And you're right. Nationally, insurance rates for automobile policies have gone up almost 20%. So we're seeing a big increase in my numbers of people wanting to take the senior driving class. But I'm hoping, Diedrich, that it's not just, I'm glad that there's more numbers. I'm glad to see the numbers increase substantially. But the major goal is for them to learn things, to become better drivers. And usually I'm talking to the choir. Usually these people are already pretty good drivers, and they haven't had a collision, they haven't had a ticket for a long time, and a lot of them do want to be there to ask questions. But I hope that's the major goal, and the second goal would be to get an insurance break.
Is there an average percentage of insurance break that you know of? Or
Yeah, it's usually 5% over a 2-year period. I know of some companies that will give up to a 10% break over a 3-year period. But most of the companies, it's 2 years, 5%. And there's 171 insurance companies in our state.
Right. So it's a day class. about 6 hours or so?
Yeah, we'll usually start about 9 o'clock and get through around 3:30. We build a lunch into that. Usually that's free with the cost.
And the cost is $20.
The cost is usually, sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 20. I usually let the director of the senior center, and I have 15 sites and 13 of them are at senior center. So I usually ask the person that's in charge, what do you think we should charge? And I want to, and then they, of course, they fill out an application and they get a meal for free. So,
Oh, or included.
yeah, or included.
Included. This is not just Gerry standing up there lecturing for 6
No,
hours. So
for sure.
Tell us about what to expect if you attend.
Well, two things. We have two speakers that I bring in for sure. One is Operation Lifesaver. It's a Burlington Northern sponsors this program called Operation Lifesaver. I've seen the program for over 30 years. I have the same people coming in for over 30 years to my high school classes. Now they're coming into my senior driving classes. And by the way, I started teaching the senior driving classes when I was 45.
Oh, okay.
And now I know a little bit better what people are going through. But the other program is we have a law enforcement person come in. I know when I hold my classes in Lewis County, they are very good, the State Patrol, of bringing somebody in. And they'll come in and they usually have, I give them about 15 questions, and there's a lot of questions from the audience. And I think what really makes this program genuine is they get to ask questions. They're not just sitting there on a Zoom class, but they're in person and they feel like they're learning. And so it's really nice to have two speakers. And if it's outside of, like, let's say Shelton or Belfair, or about up at Nia Bay or down in Vancouver, usually I'll have a police officer come in, like I did at Winlock a couple of weeks ago.
So who do you have coming for the July 13th?
I have the police chief from Belfair coming in.
The police chief or the sheriff?
Huh?
The sheriff? You
Yeah,
mean? Okay,
sure.
So
Yeah.
Ryan Sperling.
Somebody from the sheriff's
Oh,
department.
somebody from, not necessarily Ryan Sperling, but somebody
Yeah,
from the sheriff's
But
department.
I have somebody from the sheriff's department coming into Belfair hub. Yeah.
Okay, at the hub.
And I provide questions for them. It gives them a chance to ask about local situations, local street situations.
Okay.
What should they do? You know.
Well, some of your topics, and this is based on, I have a list of topics here that are from your flyers, from the flyers currently available on Mason Web TV, and as well as the one we did last year. So some of your topics, I'm going to jump in to just grab one of these things. It says reference points. What do you mean by reference points?
Reference points, there are 6 basic reference points. I learned the reference points about 20 years ago. And we never talked about reference points when I first started teaching traffic safety in 1970. But what it does, it allows you to know that you have stopped before the curb when you're coming into a parking spot.
Okay.
So that you wind up 6 to 12 inches away from the curb or the white line when you pull in. We teach them a reference point when they back into a spot, to be able to look through their back window and draw a line between themselves and the back window and the white line that they're trying to get close to. I have found that the reference points will save bumpers. It saves tires. For example, we teach them how to pull to the curb. Most of them can do it just because they've done it for so long. But young people and sometimes senior citizens do need help with those. Like, for example, when they can see the bottom of the curb lining it up with the middle of their hood, when that looks like that middle of that hood is lined up with the bottom of the curb, they're about 6 inches away. And this is really important, especially if they're parking on a hill. And so it does save the tires. Yeah, and so like I said, there are 6 different reference points.
So, as you said, it's over 50 years of doing this. I mean, obviously, technology in cars has changed. You've got backup cameras and safety sensors all over the place. How does that come into your class?
What are some of the changes, let me paraphrase your question, some of the changes that I've seen over the last 50 years that we're teaching?
Yes.
Thank you. We're talking about the hand position on the steering wheel. We like to have them have their hands at 9 and 3 now instead of 10 and 2 because of the effects of the airbag when there's a frontal collision at 25, 27 miles per hour. Another thing that we talk about is the reference points, so that let's say they happen to have to take the DOL road test. They're not going to get dinged 2 points because they went over the stop line a little bit, or went over the crosswalk a little bit. We talk about different terms like targeting. We talk about a good idea of a reference point would be when you're making a left-hand turn, you want to come out until your left mirror is lined up with the center line, so you square off your turn. We talk about line of sight, path of travel. For example, you're coming up, you're on a 4-lane two-way street, and you're coming up and you see a big truck stopped at a crosswalk. Well, you should be asking questions like, maybe they're stopped because there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk. What do? Well, you move a little bit to the left. Of course, you slow down and you change your path of travel, and so that you can see that pedestrian better. So we talk about targeting, path of travel. Look before you accelerate. Hug your turns. Hug your right turns, square off your left turns. It's unfortunate that when I first started teaching traffic safety, we had a semester class. Now we have 30 hours. So we're having to come up with new ways of getting the information out a lot quicker, but more efficiently, which we are trying to do. But it's really hard, especially you knowing me. I like to talk, and the thing is, I know you laugh a lot, but I have a hard time doing a traffic safety program for high school students in 30 hours, so I try to increase it a little bit. But the nice thing is we can get about 22 different items out there to senior citizens because they already have that driving experience. I think the main thing that we're working on now and emphasizing more than we used to is seeing habits. It's all about seeing habits. Whether you're moving 2 feet one way or the other, make the head check. Move the mirrors out so you see less blind spots, but still make the head check. When you come up to a green light, when that light changes to green, that doesn't mean go. It means look left, forward, right. How many times have you seen people run a red light, speed up? And we teach people to not go rushing up to a red light or a green light. Let off the gas early so that by the time you get there, it changes to green and you have an open zone. And I think the other thing that we try to emphasize is that instead of making a left turn, unless you have a green arrow at a busy intersection, make a series of rights. It is safer. It might take a little bit longer, but it's much, much safer. But I think now we're putting so much more emphasis on seeing habits and not just relying on technology and the backup camera and the mirrors.
You said series of right turns. Kind of brings me into the roundabout.
Yes.
Mason County has 2 roundabouts at
Yes.
this point. More are planned. People don't like roundabouts. Nearby communities have significantly more.
Like Gig Harbor.
Gig Harbor, even in Olympia, you got some significantly more complicated, at least to somebody who doesn't do them a lot, roundabouts. How do you suggest people handle roundabouts?
Well, the thing is, you want to always yield to the cars coming into the roundabout from the left. The other thing is you want to make sure you select the proper lane ahead of time. Don't make the lane change in the roundabout. Don't try to pass a truck in a roundabout. I think the key is slowing down, looking twice. But some people approach those roundabouts too fast. And I think it's important to slow down to at least 15 miles an hour. And there are some roundabouts, like the one going down Harrison towards the Capitol Lake, I would go 10 on those and be willing to look for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Right.
And so roundabouts, maybe going a little bit slower, but don't be afraid of them. There's so many advantages to roundabouts. The collisions are not as bad, because you're getting hit at an angle. It's better for the environment. It allows more traffic to go through, but it just takes the practice. And we do, that's one of the subjects that we work on in our class, is talking about roundabouts. The 8 different things that you need to pay attention to when you're approaching a roundabout.
How about freeways, Gerry?
Well, I think the most important thing is people, especially older people, I'm getting there, is when you enter the freeway, you want to enter with the flow of traffic. The other thing is, don't just rely on your mirror. You want to check the mirror, make a head check. Check your mirror, head check. Check your mirror, head check. And by the time you get to the merge area, you should have your speed up to the flow of traffic. And that's where you cross at the broken white lines.
Right.
But the thing I see, people don't signal soon enough. They don't make enough head checks when they come on. And the other big thing that we work on is when you're leaving the freeway, don't slow down until you get into that deceleration lane. And then cancel your signal and check your mirror, check your speedometer, so that once you leave the freeway, you don't velocitize. Perfect example of that would be coming off the Narrows Bridge, going into Gig Harbor, and coming down the hill. Slow down, check your speedometer.
You have one of your topics is road rage. Road rage, in my opinion, is 2 ways. Somebody does something and somebody else reacts. That's road rage. How do you avoid road rage?
Well, I think the most important thing is stay out of that left lane on the freeway. That's one thing. And don't call it the fast lane. Call it the passing lane. Be in there to pass and then get back over. That's one thing. Don't be afraid to signal 500 feet ahead of time. And once you make your lane change, cancel your blinker. Those are a couple things you can do. And don't be and the other thing is stay in the middle lane.
Right.
You have an out to your left and right. Don't be in that right-hand lane, because you're going to be creating a little bit of road rage unless you're going to be leaving the freeway in the next mile or two, especially like if you're going to the airport.
Right.
But be watching. Make a head check over your shoulder to see what's coming onto the freeway so you can help them out. But I think doing those things plus not retaliating. The other thing is you can use your cell phone. I think that's really important to fake. If you have to, fake it, that you're faking 911. I've done that a couple times, and you're never going to see that person again that causes road rage. Don't go to your home. Go to a well-lit area. So those are some of the things that I encourage people to do. But going too slow can be a detriment, especially on a freeway. So.
Yeah. I want to jump back to the class and the potential discount, and referring to my policy, which is a joint policy with my wife. Now the discount, if I go to your class and get the certificate, that doesn't impact her, does it? So she has to participate as well.
She does.
Okay.
It's funny, to make it a little humorous. I asked my wife, She does go to some of my classes, especially when we go down to the harbor.
Right.
But I ask her, how come you haven't taken the class? And she says, well, I have to listen to you anyway. So, you know, when we're coming out of the freeway. And you know what? She's actually a better driver than I am, because she does now makes those head checks. And she's moving her eyes more, especially when she's coming up to an intersection. It's amazing to see people just walking. You know, they'll walk down the road, maybe with their dog, and they're looking straight ahead.
Yeah.
They're not looking to their side. They don't notice you as you walk by. And I wonder how they do when they're in the car, if they're doing the same thing, that they're just looking straight ahead, right, and not using their peripheral vision.
Kind of goes along with if you're in a grocery store and people do the same thing with their carts. And
I know, they're not moving their head. They're not, yeah.
Okay, so this class is again 9 a.m. Saturday, July 13th at the Hub in Belfair. How does somebody sign up for the class, or can they just show up?
Usually they can do two things. They can either call me and I'll put them on the list, and then they pay the day of the class. And I give them time. Because it's a Saturday class, then they bring their own lunch. Okay. Or I give them time to go to McDonald's or whatever. Or sometimes I'll even buy pizza or whatever. But usually they can call me, or they can call the Hub itself and provide their name, and then they pay the day of the class. Yeah.
Anybody has any questions you want them to call you too?
Sure, you
or
bet.
Email?
You bet.
Okay.
You bet.